Hello again, welcome back to the ProFit podcast. We have another guest lined up for you today. So another exciting episode. I think this is the last one in our guest series. So before I do that, as always, I'm your host, Paul Campey, and Matt is with me. How are you doing, pal?
I'm very good, thank you, Paul. Again, excited for another interview today. Someone I don't know too well, so excited to get to know him a bit better and hear his story.
Yeah, this is the reverse to the Tom Vasey one, is that Matt is Tom's mentor and knows him very well, and it was really good for me to get to know Tom. I think this is kind of in reverse. So this is somebody that I mentor and have known for a number of years. I'll give you a little bit of background to this person and then let him talk a little bit more about his journey as well. And we've got some specific questions that we want to dig into. And there's kind of rationale why this person's on the podcast today. And I think it'll be really good for the listeners. So this is somebody I've worked with for a good number of years now. He just informed me off mic that it's about 7 years. It seems to fly. I've written 5, totally wrong. So it shows you how fast time goes by. He's been PTing for 7 years, came from a background of doing fitness instruction and all those kind of jobs in the gym, which, you know, we've discussed pros and cons of that in the past as well. Built a super solid business, one of the most consistent people I've ever worked with. And that's one of the biggest reasons for having him on the podcast today, is we want to go into some of that side of building a business, setting goals, building great habits. It's something we harp on about all the time, but this guy is pretty much the epitome, the working example of that. I hope I've bigged it up enough. So our guest today is Jordan Swindells. How are you doing, mate? You all right?
I'm very well, yeah. Thank you for having me on. I'm looking forward to it.
Good.
Maybe $1 million there, so yeah, I'm happy with that.
Yeah, like that. I worked on that. So I think where to start is maybe just give a little bit of your story as a trainer, as a PT in the fitness industry. Just give us a brief life story of that.
Absolutely, yeah. I won't go into too much detail, but yeah, basically got a job in the gym when I was like 16 as a lifeguard. So I think I did the training whilst at school or something like that. Worked as a lifeguard in the gym for like a couple of years. Always wanted to kind of, my goal at the time being like 17, 18 was to get into like fitness instructors. I used to walk around the pool, like watching them in the gym, like I want to do a bit of that kind of thing. So I did the qualification whilst working as a lifeguard, whilst at college and stuff, started teaching some classes as a fitness instructor. Did that again for maybe 18 months or so. I think got promoted to like fitness manager role kind of thing. So I was doing like shift managers and stuff like that. And then it got to the point where I was like sat behind the laptop kind of thing. I was working in the gym, but I'd be sat in the office. I'd be cashing up tills. You'd be doing people's rotors, all this kind of stuff. And I was like, this is not what I wanted to do. So got on the PT course, did that. Again, whilst I think I was working full time. Yeah, I was working full time in the gym at that point. And then got speaking to, I already had a kind of a relationship with the PTs in that gym at the time, who was working with ProFit at the time. And then, yeah, just kind of went from there. And then it's been a 7-year whirlwind, as Paul said. So, yeah, that's kind of my kind of journey of how I got into PT, let's say.
That's perfect. So number one, I didn't realize you were so young, starting when you were working in the gym side of things. And then I didn't realize you were a fitness manager either.
I did that for, I don't even think I lasted like 12 months. I used to do, say if I was working 5 days a week, I think I used to do like 3 days like general fitness instructor. So I'd be teaching classes, all that kind of jazz. And then I used to do like a Friday and a Sunday or something where I'd be like shift manager kind of thing. But again, I was probably only maybe 20 at the time or something. Yeah.
Because you were young when you were doing that as well.
I was really young. Yeah. I had a few testing customers, but yeah.
It's one of those sort of ironic positions people find themselves in, where because they're really good at the job, they get taken out of that job and put into a job that's nothing related to the job they were doing.
I was one of them. Yeah, young fitness manager. Yeah,
I was like, I'll never have a desk job. I could not do it. And then I was like, hold on a minute. I'm sat here behind this desk on a computer. I was like, no, this is not for me. This is not for me.
Yeah. And to sort of kick off the questions, Jordan, like one of the things that I know Paul wanted us to discuss with you today, based on what he's seen you do over the last 7 years, is the idea of like goal setting and setting goals for yourself. And we were wondering whether, was that something that you started doing because you got into running a PT business, or is that something you've done in all areas of your life? Like, can you just talk to us about the role of goal setting and that within your journey? Because I know that it's something that Paul's highlighted as being, like, when he spoke to me about you before off mic, he said, like, this is the top guy for doing this type of stuff in his business. He's awesome at it. So
yeah,
where's that fit in for you, and what does it usually look like?
Again, I think I'll go back a little bit. Like, before it definitely started, in fact, I had like kind of very vague brief, like I knew I wanted to progress and stuff like that, as like before I started as a PT, but definitely more sort of serious and more structure probably when I became a PT. And yeah, now we've just gone through some stuff with Paul, what I'm kind of taking into next year. But yeah, the way that I do it is I'll write out stuff that I want to do for the next 12 months. And again, in say 3, 4, 5, 10 years as well. And then I'll kind of work backwards from there. So from the 12 months, I'll go, where do I want to be in 9 months? And again, there'll be different areas. There'll be business, there'll be investments, there'll be personal stuff. And then again, where they're going to be in 6 months, where they're going to be in 3 months. Sounds pretty simple, but I kind of work back and I'll make sure I'm very specific with numbers and things like that. And then the biggest kind of thing, I usually work in quite like small windows. Like I only see 3-4 weeks at a time, like ahead of me. I work kind of in short windows as such. So yeah, I have a whiteboard that I have on my bedroom, up in my bedroom wall, and there'll be monthly actions on there, stuff that I need to, who do I need to speak to? There'll be stuff, everything on there, all throughout my business, my personal life, all that kind of stuff. And then again, breaking down even further, weekly stuff will be in my normal calendar. Like my calendar is like gospel to me. So it'll have all my client sessions in it. It'll have my training in it. It has my reading in it. It has literally everything in it. And if it is in that diary, it's getting done. It's as simple as that. As far from taking the bins out or whatever it's going to be. So that's kind of how I break it down. Big stuff and then kind of chip back at it. But yeah, like I say, probably the biggest tip would be monthly having something like up in front of you that you can see all the time. And then again, kind of break it down even further, even closer, weekly, daily. I use my calendar, and I love a list as well. So I have to do a list of stuff all the time. But yeah.
I think, go on. I was gonna sort of follow up from there, because I know that I've come across people and trainers just in general that love the planning phase of goal setting. They absolutely love that bit. They love dreaming. They love getting things down. They can see it. They can feel it. How I know you've already sort of spoke about it, but how do you make sure that you actually take action on it? I think that's the bit most people really mess up.
Yeah, I was going to ask. Yeah.
I mean, we see it with New Year's resolutions, don't we? That's all that is. It's a goal setting session done in 30 seconds, but you obviously go a bit further than that. And a lot of people are now doing that. There's a lot more of this, sit down and write out your goals and blah, blah, blah. But most people still close the book and put it away. Like, they don't do anything. So you clearly are different to that. What do you think's happening there?
I just said this to Paul as well in our session, in our mentor session before we hit record. Like, I knew this question was going to come. I was like, I not that I can't put my finger on it, but I was like, I was asking myself the same question when I was thinking about it last night. And I think the only answer that I can come up with is I'm very regimented in like the way that I do things. So like I said, if it's on there, it's kind of getting done. And I think it just comes from a confidence of like, I don't know if it's like habit building, and then you set yourself goals and you reach that goal. And I don't know if it comes from that or, I don't know. I'm just, if it's down on paper and it's on my whiteboard and it's in my diary, like, I'm not going to miss it. And I'm one of them people, like I said to Paul as well, I can't sit down until something's done. I can't until everything's done, from to putting the dishwasher away or whatever it is. Like, I can't relax until things are done. So I think it probably comes from a little bit of that as well. Maybe like habit building, getting used to doing things, so it kind of becomes like a subconscious thing. And yeah, just
all of that with a healthy mixture of OCD in there as well.
That's exactly what I said to Paul. That's exactly what I said. I was like, do you know what? You've made me realize. I was like, there's definitely some OCD in there.
Yeah. I think we're all on some sort of spectrum somewhere, aren't we? It's just where we are on that spectrum.
Yeah. I'm exactly the same. I'm like, how people can kind of just like walk in and just throw the coat down. Like Paul said, you just kick your shoes off and sit down. I'm like, that's not me. I can't do that.
Yeah.
Until that list has been fully ticked off for that day or that week, there's no signing off. Yeah.
So there probably is a bit of personality in there. There's a bit of a kind of psychological profile. That's who you are.
Yeah. I think definitely. I think it's understanding that as well.
Yeah. And I think there are things you mentioned, you write a lot of stuff down. Like I've known you for years and I see you do that all the time. Like you constantly writing notes about what you're doing.
Yeah.
And Tim Ferriss does a lot of this as well, doesn't he? I know that he talks a lot about, he has a notebook for everything he does. I think that helps so much. Yeah. Like being able to look back on what you've done and go, did that. It breeds confidence. Because you're thinking, when I write something, I'm going to do it.
That's what I was trying to say. Not habit building, but kind of you set yourself a small, like a small goal. It's a little win. It's like, do you know what? Yeah, I was kind of, I can do that, but. And then you do it, and then all of a sudden it's like, let's try something a little bit bigger. Yeah, you can do it. And all of a sudden it kind of snowballs, doesn't it? And then it's like, yeah, do you know what? Anything that you put anything in front of me, and I can kind of, I'm going to look you in the eye, and I'm going to say, yeah, I'm going to do it, and I know that I'm going to do it. So, yeah, I think it kind of starts small, and then, yeah, you just build confidence with it, I suppose.
Yeah, that's something for listeners can take away from that straight away. That's snowball analogy. Like things start small and get bigger.
Yeah.
But, tracking it will help that process because you're looking at everything you've done and patting yourself on the back all the time, breeding confidence and giving yourself momentum. Like that leads nicely into second question then. How did you learn? Because that's all nice, fine and nice, that principle of snowballing and take your time and blah, blah, blah. But you have to almost have the presupposition there that you are all right with delayed gratification. Like you're not a shiny object syndrome. You're not going to go and, I've made £1,000. I'm going to go and blow it straight away. Has that always been something you've had, or have you had to learn it, or what? Where's that come from? Because I think you have a lot of that as well.
Yeah, I can. Like I said earlier in the last question, it kind of conflicts itself. But I either work with like 6 inches in front of me, like I said before. So I'll have everything in that week. I'm kind of know exactly where I'm going to go. And then there's no middle bit. If you go from 6 months to like 5 years, it's a bit blurry. And then 5 years onwards, everything's kind of crystal clear again. So I'll kind of break the bigger stuff down into smaller chunks right in front of me. And then I'll kind of work again. But again, it comes down to like what you just said before about writing stuff down. I write everything down. I'll have a plan for everything. Like we just spoke about like investment portfolios and stuff. Like I'll have a plan. And again, it comes back to kind of the first kind of question of like building confidence of it and stuff. So I'll always have a plan and a structure. I'll write shed loads of notes down about it, about stuff that I want to do in 10 years, 20, 30 years. And then if I've got that plan, like I said, if I tell you I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it 1,000%. So, and then it's just following that plan for 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, and just don't deviate away from that.
That's interesting. So you have the big stuff, the stuff a long way away, the further away goals, and then you have the 4 weeks in front of your face.
Yeah, exactly.
And you don't think about anything else. Just get through that 4 weeks.
I try not to almost think about the big stuff because I think that can deviate away from what's happening this week or next week, or if that makes sense. I'll still have the icons, vehicles, like the stuff that I'm really excited about, and I know that are going to happen in 10 years time, 20 years time. But I think, my kind of tip or whatever you want to call it, or how I work and what works for me is keep things very, very simple. That's another thing, actually. Make sure it's very, very simple. It's broken down into a couple of actions that is literally black and white. And let's go ahead and do these things for the next week, 2 week, month.
And just trust the process.
Exactly. Yeah. Like I said, it's kind of the groundwork is done. So I know that it's going to be there in 10 years time or whatever. I've kind of worked backwards from there in my head and I've broken it down into monthly. Yeah. that answers the question.
I think it does.
Yeah.
It's a hard one to pin down.
I also don't not celebrate now, if that makes sense as well. Like
that's actually our next bit, Jordan. So
okay, go on.
We were gonna ask, like, how when talking to someone like yourself, I suppose it's always it's our job to try and deliver like a little bit of balance, like both sides of the sort of the coin. And obviously you're very driven, you're very clear on where you're going and what you're doing. And I suppose it's us trying to get an insight as to how do you balance that in terms of enjoying those moments along the way. Do you celebrate wins? Like, I know Paul mentioned you'd not that long since moved into your house and things like that. You know, how significant are those things to you? Or is it a case of you do it and then you move on? Like, what are those things like for you?
I think I've got a very good balance. Like one of my favorite quotes is content but never satisfied. So I'm big on gratitude. Like I do the daily gratification stuff. I almost think that I probably celebrate too much as well. If not giving myself a hard time, but like I've got my diary down to not working like crazy hours like you do when you first start your PT business. Like I still put the hours in, but nothing like what I did when you first kind of building your business. So then again, like from like this time onwards, I'll have weekends away. Like last weekend we was away. This weekend we've got friends staying over at the new house. Next weekend we're on holiday again. So I kind of will buckle down tenfold from the working hours that I now do, and then kind of celebrate. It doesn't mean going crazy on the booze every weekend or whatever, but I'll celebrate in some way pretty much every week, or at least like once a month we'll have something booked in where I will go. And then again, celebrating kind of the bigger stuff like house and things like that. Again, it kind of, there's a bit of both. Like it's still kind of sinking in. We've been in like 3-4 weeks maybe. We've had the keys for like 3-4 months, but we've done a lot of work on the house. So we've kind of been celebrating in dribs and drabs. I don't think it kind of hits you all in one go. If it is something like a big goal, like I've had this goal for maybe 5 years. So yeah, I think I'm better at celebrating small and often rather than wow, if that makes sense.
That's interesting. Yeah, I think I'd go along with that as a good tactic. I don't think I'm a kind of big break out the champagne, let's all have a 300-person party and not or something to that effect. I think small and often keeps you consistent.
Yeah, I think that's everything. Yeah, I think that's the other thing. Like people can kind of either get dragged from pillar to post or whatever. It's like you're asking why you feel you're so consistent. I think it's because I know that something good is kind of coming. Not that I dislike my job or whatever. Like I know it's kind of like dangling the carrot in front of you all the time.
But that's an important part of the process for you, is to have those celebrations in there.
Massively, yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And I think as well, the bit that really stood out for me in all of that is he sort of let this go under the radar a bit, but he mentioned at the start, within this new working diary, he'll work tenfold in those days that he is working.
Yeah. Super productive.
And then we celebrate, and it's that's the bit that allows the celebrating to happen, because if you're not doing the work, you're going to feel bad about the celebration. You're going to feel guilty.
I think that's also because I like to kind of, I won't fully switch off at a weekend, and like I'll still be in touch with my clients and all that kind of stuff. But I think that's what allows me for that to happen, if that makes sense. Yeah. Like I said earlier as well, unless if everything on that list is fully ticked off, I'm not switching off, or I'm not allowed to have my weekend or go away, or so I will make sure that everything that I've set out from them working hours is done. Yeah, and I'll be, like say, tenfold productive. Everything will be boxed off, and then it's kind of yeah, we can. It almost allows me. I think I wouldn't. Well, I know I wouldn't. I wouldn't kick back and put my feet up from Friday to Sunday or whatever it's going to be. I wouldn't go on the little trips away and enjoy myself if I hadn't ticked them things off.
What I like about this as well is it's, I think me and Paul have discussed this before about this idea of like boundaries and routine creating freedom. It's like the opposite of what people quite often think. And I think this is a really good example of that. By having that strict routine and those strict boundaries with yourself, gives you the freedom to go and do all these things that you want to do along the way. Yeah. Whereas people just want constant freedom to do whatever they want, whenever they want, and live this really sort of airy-fairy lifestyle, which is fine. but there's got to be some work done somewhere, hasn't there? You know, it's got to happen somewhere if you're going to do anything impactful.
I feel like that massive, you've just made me realize personally as well. I think that massively aligns like with my values. Like freedom's a massive thing for me, but also like hard work, determination. They're probably kind of like the top 3 things. So it kind of, for me, that kind of ticks all the boxes. I've not actually realized that myself before until you said that. But yeah, that kind of makes me understand why it works for me and why it fits for me. I'll like work my absolute socks off so then I can have the freedom and
fits with it all.
Yeah. And like you say, the determination side of it kind of comes from if something's down or I'm telling you that I'm going to do something, like then I'm just going to bulldoze my way through everything until we get there, and then I can have freedom.
That's probably answers a little bit of that first question we asked you as well.
Right.
Then is that the reason why you've got this innate ability to plan, to be determined, because it's who you are. It's part of your values, and you've figured that out.
Yeah.
And you're on the right path that fits with the values. And but that's it. It's really good to hear a working example of that, like Matt said, because we harp on about boundaries, creating freedom and structure, and giving you the ability to grow and learn more and get better at what you do. But yours is like, if without giving away the hours you work, 99% of PTs would look at your diary and be green with envy for the hours you work and the money you make and the freedom you've got. It's most PTs' dream. But it took
my dream. Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's your dream. Yeah. And it took discipline and certain practices to get there, where, I want most, some of the listeners who are struggling with that right now to listen to that, and you can achieve it. You just have to put a process in place.
100%. Yeah.
Where are we up to? So good to hear you do celebrate, because I wasn't sure. You celebrate little and often. That's good.
Yeah.
The one thing we wanted to dig into next was some of your weekly, your daily, your weekly, your monthly hacks. Like, I know you've got a few things that are not necessarily unique to you, but I know that you do regularly, like your book reviews. You read a book a month and you do a full-on review. I remember you showing me this, because I sort of didn't believe you. I knew you're disciplined. I was like, do you really do that? And you turned your laptop round and it was mental. Like every note from a book review for every book for the last 3-4 years, there was like 50 books on this list with a review of every one. So things like that. What do you do?
Let's go on to the book reviews. And I remember it was actually, it was an interview with Steve Butters, who he's probably been mentioned on this podcast loads of times before, to become a mentor, to become a ProFit mentor. Right. So I've been working for the company, say 5 years or whatever it was, like Paul had already said. This was a couple of years ago now. And he was like, tell me some ways. So I'd kind of gone through some of this stuff. I'm self-aware. So these are the kind of things that I'm good at. I'm structured, all these kind of things. And he was like, show me how. And I thought, how the hell am I going to structure? And I thought, right, I've got it. Pulled up my book review list. And I'd not missed a month for 5.5 years or whatever it was at the time. Yeah. So literally I'll set myself a goal. Like I said, it's on my goal list for this year, a minimum of 1 book a month. So I'll read. I prefer paperback as well. I also listen to podcasts and stuff. That's kind of separate, but yeah, I read 1 book a month minimum. And I'll also write a review on it every month. So like I said, the hacks and stuff it's in my diary. I think that's the biggest hack that I can give. Right. I'll set an hour a day or half an hour a day. And like I said, my diary is gospel. So if it's in that diary, no clients having that slot, I'll value it massively and I'll make sure it's done. Yeah. And then again, when it comes, I'll highlight it. That's another little tip. I'll highlight kind of little bits as I go. And then when it gets to the end of the month, whenever I've finished the book, I'll then kind of not skim through, but I'll kind of read over all the highlighted notes. And then I will write the review. When I say review, it will be like a small paragraph. It might be 5 lines on like a notes section on my Mac or whatever. And then I think that's what I was thinking about this as well. Like I can kind of take in information and just get small nuggets from stuff and implement it well. And I think that's why I'll read it, I'll highlight it, I'll kind of read it all again. I'll read all the highlighted stuff again. Then I'll write it all down. And I just feel it sticks. So yeah, I think valuing it once it's in your diary and not putting someone in and going home an hour earlier or whatever it's going to be. So making that work for you whenever you kind of sit down for half an hour, value in that time. And yeah, reading it probably twice, not reading the full book twice, but some bits that you've highlighted, and then actually writing it down. I think you writing down what you've kind of learned helped massively. And then again, you've got it all in front of you. I've got 7 years worth of books that I've read through. I can kind of flick through, oh God, yeah, I remember that. I remember this, like, and then kind of looking and thinking, did I implement that? Oh yeah, maybe I did, maybe I didn't. How can I implement it? Yeah.
It's always nice and simple. Like that. I like the thing about just when you read a book, highlight the bits that you like a lot, go back, read it again, but just read the highlight bits.
Yeah.
I don't know whether that's like a forgotten technique. I remember studying for exams like that, but I wonder how many people actually would do that now, or would just skim it or do an audiobook.
I think as well, like this is going a bit further, a bit deeper kind of thing, but I was never an academic at school either. Like kind of your stereotypical, like I just love playing sport, or like couldn't sit still for 5 minutes, was never really interested or listened. So when I kind of discovered reading, which I think was probably from yourself, Paul, like kind of pushing me to go on like a Tony Robbins course or something like that, or I kind of saw all the other trainers in like the pro fit kind of environment, everyone was reading. I was thinking, this is what, obviously when I first started, like I'm missing out on something, I need to. And I read How to Win Friends and Influence People. Someone recommended that to me, where like, I think you might have been either Graham or yourself, like within 2 months of me starting at ProFit.
We recommend that on day one.
And I was like, this book, I don't think I'd ever read a book apart from a football program or something like that. Like I was not interested at all. And I read it and I could see how I could implement that in my business, like remembering people's names. And this is the stuff that I still use today. Again, like the absolute basics, just the basics. But it just creates lasting results, I suppose. So yeah.
Good.
I think from just as an, like, because I'm a bit of an outsider looking in on this conversation, I think something that might be worth digging into at this point is, because I'm listening to what you do, Jordan, and I think like many trainers listening to this, they're probably sat there thinking, you know, because there's a few things you've mentioned now, you know, you've mentioned that you do your gratitude log, you read your book every day, you've clearly got a successful PT business, you probably do your own training, you've got a social life. I think a few people are going to be sat there thinking, so this guy gets up at 3 a.m. and goes to bed at midnight. Like, how does he make all this happen? Like, what does his day look like? And I think that's something that the listeners at this point, hopefully they're all sat there nodding their heads as I mentioned this, like what does your day actually look like? Give us an idea of like, what's a day in the life of Jordan? How does all that stuff fit in?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because I think this will act nicely in terms of reading a book a month can sound quite daunting, but when you break it down like you do, it makes sense and you stick to it. But it's knowing where that fits in and how it fits in with everything else that you do. So just give us an idea of what your day looks like, mate. I think that'd be really useful.
I think that, I'll go through that. The first little thing I would say is, as you could probably tell from like the way that I am and stuff, I'm pretty rigid about things as well. Like, say if it's going to happen, it's going to happen. But I'm also like super strict on time. So like, I'm just always aware of time, if that makes sense. So I'm always kind of, the PT is probably the perfect job for me, in fact, because everything's kind of blocked out hour by your day. So it's probably the perfect kind of job for me, really. But yeah, a kind of a day in the life of me, it kind of splits. So I won't go through every day, but Monday I kind of do a split day. So I've always been a pretty good morning person. Like I say, I've worked in gyms from being 16 years old. So I get up at 5 a.m. even some days when it be cold, wet, all the rest of it. I'm used to it. So most days I'll be in the gym for 6, half 6. I usually train around 7:30, 8 o'clock. So I'll either do one session, train, or 2 sessions and then train. And then from 9 till say 12:30, 1 o'clock every day is pretty much full. Monday to Thursday is pretty much full. Mondays I go back in the evening. I'll also have my reading then. So usually I'll go home or I'll go for a coffee or something like that from say 1 till 4 o'clock. That's where I'll kind of eat, read. That's where the development comes in. Or if I'm nipping home, I'll be listening to a podcast on the drive home or something like that. And then, like I said, Monday evenings, I'm back in the gym. So I'll do 2-3 sessions on Monday evening. Tuesday evening is a little bit more my time. So if I'll watch the football, if the football's on or something like that. Wednesday, pretty similar. And then again, kind of I'll be lining stuff up for Thursday, either going away or something like that. Friday morning, I do work, but not in the gym. So we've got a small online side to my business that I've added in the last like year or so, which I kind of work from home, if you want to call it that. So I don't actually go into the gym usually. I'll either wake up, do my kind of check-ins that I'll do with my clients. I'll speak to all my face-to-face clients as well via text, Zoom, or whatever it is, if any of them need any more time. And then I can go in the gym if I want to train, or I've been playing a little bit of golf. So we'll go to the driving range on a Friday with one of my clients or with an old friend or something like that. But yeah, I think just being, like I said, being very structured and kind of, I never feel too busy, if that makes sense. So yeah, and then my weekends are my own. I go and watch the football or go have a nice meal, something like that.
Good. So again, for the sort of benefit of the audience, I'm assuming then, listening to that, Jordan, that you're fully involved with like a semi-private model now. Then is that what you're running that allows you to work fewer hours and still have, you know, a nice lifestyle and things like that?
Yeah, I would say it's probably 50-50. So I still have it's not full semi-private business. I don't just do groups, but I do have quite a lot of groups. Yeah, I'd probably say a 40-40 or maybe 45-45-10 split in terms of one-to-one, semi-private and online. The online side's only quite small because it's only been around for 6 months, say, or post-lockdown. But yeah, I'd say half and half in the gym. Yeah, half and half semi-private, which again, that's something that I want to work on. I've just again spoke to Paul about this over the last couple of months of kind of developing and building that. And yeah, if there's anyone that I've got currently that I can pair up, or like I said, you can bring husbands, wives in, all that kind of stuff. But yeah, I've kind of shortened my hours down, if that makes sense, by pairing people up. Yeah, advertising semi-private. It's only really pitching that now if I'm in a consultation. Yeah.
Good. Yeah, that's an important point to make, is that the diary now you've got has been a case of bringing the hours down by changing some of the options for people, but keeping the revenue high and increasing. That's always been the goal.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so that's kind of some of my goals going into next year, is to increase my revenue by 10-15% by keeping the same hours. And how am I going to do that is, yeah, pairing people up, only pitching semi-private or online training. So I could quite comfortably take on another 5 to 10 online clients that I can deal with on Fridays when I'm just sat on my laptop. And yeah, that's where the revenue can come from, without me really being in the gym anymore.
Yeah.
More than I already am. Yeah.
And I think hearing a goal like that actually is really refreshing, because to a lot of people, they feel like they've got to double the business. They feel like you've got to add 10 grand to your business. Otherwise it's not worth pursuing. And again, I think it's people trying to buy it off more than they can chew. You know, I'll go back to your book example. Most people don't read a book a month because they think they should be reading a book a week.
Yeah.
Most people don't go running once a week because they think they should be going 3 times a week.
Yeah.
And it's just this over inflation of everything, isn't it? And when you sat there then and said my revenue is going to go up 10%, I'm sat here thinking, well, yeah, I believe it is. I think it will.
Yeah.
Whereas if someone says I'm going to double my business, or I'm going to make 6 figures or whatever, as great as that sounds, they probably don't believe it themselves, do they?
So I think I know the audience of this is not to have an employed job as such, but if you had an employed, kind of what people would class, quote unquote, a normal job, if you got a 10% pay rise every year, you would absolutely snatch your employer's hand off. So that's where I also look at it.
Yeah. And this sorry, Jordan, this takes us quite nicely into this next route of conversation, because another area that Paul's mentioned you're particularly strong in is finance. And like looking after your money, tracking your money, taking care of it. So like give us a little idea as to sort of some of your thoughts, like philosophies around the importance of money in running a business, and what maybe you do to make sure you take care of it and look after everything.
I could speak about this topic all day, so stop me if I go too deep into it. I think I've always been quite good. I think this was drummed into me from quite an early age, I think. My dad's always been pretty savvy with money, and has always kind of drummed it into me. But again, it probably started a little bit more in my PT business, where I remember Graham used to always say, he'd be like, treat it as a business. it was like if £2,000 comes in, for example, he was like, that is not your money. And then it's kind of however much 10%, 20% goes away for tax. Then you've got your expenses, you've got your bills, you've got all. It's like, I think that kind of helped me massively at the start. Now that kind of comes second nature, as obviously we've done it for a number of years. But yeah, just nailing the basics again in terms of that, making sure like you don't get a massive tax bill at the end of the year and think, oh my God, like just have separate pots. I think I did a financial like education on this in my gym where it was like, I have 4 pots, 3 or 4 pots, the money that comes in, all your expenses kind of gets paid into one. So your mortgage, your bills, your gym rent, all them kind of things in another one. Then you've got kind of your spends in another one. So that's kind of like what you class as your wages, whether it be £500 a month, £1,000 a month, whatever it's going to be. That's your kind of free money as such. And then tax or any other like anything else that's going to come creeping up on you, a buffer or a tax account. I think I actually learned, and that might have been from you, Matt, actually. That might be from you, actually.
Well, it sounds familiar, that one.
Yeah, now I've said it. Well, Matt taught me that, actually. But yeah, like I said again, you'll tell me something once and I'll go away and implement it. And I think that was probably, now I've just said it, is one of those. A bit further down the line, I won't go too much into this, but I think I've mentioned it briefly as well. Like now, this was something that I was probably a million miles away, but having like investment portfolios throughout like different risks and stuff like that. This was something that kind of came about. I'd read loads of books like Rich Dad, Poor Dad and all these kind of like investing and financial literacy books and kind of loved it, but never massively implemented like too much of it until the lockdown happened basically. So last March, and then kind of just hammered home whilst I wasn't working, shed load of hours. Obviously the gym was closed. Just watched endless videos of like kind of trying to figure out about how the stock market works and all this kind of stuff. And then just created like a really low risk investment portfolio, just following like the S&P 500. Again, I won't go too much into it, but and then pumping money into that every month. And again, just kind of using my kind of structure around things and just being really rigid around things. That became a monthly habit. I've not missed a month on that since I started. Then kind of learned a little bit more, opened another one, which was kind of putting less money in, but was a little bit higher risk. And then again, a third one that was kind of even more higher risk, and just kind of having my portfolio overall diversified, where I'd be putting a bigger percentage of the money I was investing every month into the lower risk investments, and kind of working down to putting even 50 quid, 100 quid in some of the potential higher gaining investments.
Do you think that side of it, something I probably want the listeners to hear, do you think that side of it really helps your confidence with lowering your hours in the gym and, you know, having that money spread out over different investments and having that security there as well allows you to make changes in your business without feeling like it's too risky?
Yeah, massively. Like I said, hard work and determination, things like that is massively high on my list, on my values. And it's also like, the answer to the question is, it kind of allows you, like I said, I'm not the type of person to kind of sit around and do nothing all day anyway. But yeah, and it also gives me the kind of the drive to, it shows me what's possible in, again, like in 20 years time, kind of going back to another question, if I keep adding X amount per month to this and it's averaged 10% return for the last 100 years, that's how it's kind of, how it's played out. If I can average 10% a year, if I keep putting X amount of money into this, so it kind of, in 20 years, I can have this amount that's kind of something that I would never think that I would have that is now possible. I'll be going into that gym every day thinking, I want to earn more money. I want to do this so I can invest more money. It kind of, it's just kind of giving me a new lease of life to want to earn more money just so I can invest more money. So I can, again, so it comes back down to the value, so I can have more freedom. But the answer to your question is definitely.
Perfect. Yeah, it's kind of a leading question I asked you, I think. But I was trying to get across.
Our guest Miles Downey would not have been happy with that question.
It was proper leading, wasn't it?
Yeah.
But like, what I think the thing that I want people to pick up on is that you do that really well. So you've given yourself more motivation to go and earn more money through your PT business, but it's not blind. You've actually now got a percentage of that that's building wealth for you in the background as well.
Yes.
Which means that freedom, which is very high on your list of values and probably most people's list of values, you're achieving that at the same time. It's great.
Yeah, I absolutely love it. As Paul probably knows, I could literally sit and speak about this all day.
And you have a plan for it. What was I think a lot of people don't get into things like that because maybe they don't know enough about it. They get a bit scared about it. And you just went away, read the books, got your knowledge up. Exactly. You have a plan, you stick to it.
Even just from following people, like I'm not going to plug other people's podcasts and stuff on here. I'll be getting shouted at. But
no, you go
even
for it.
Stuff
if the good resources, share them.
Yeah, even stuff like the massive one for me was Lewis Morgan, the Gymshark owner. So I started watching some of his YouTube. This, in fact, is a little tip. I have his notifications on like Twitter and stuff. What's it called? Where you can like star there. If they post something, you get a notification about it. I can't remember what it's called, but he just basically, now he's sold Gymshark. They had it valued at £1 billion, whatever it was, and they sold it. His kind of one of the big ways that he makes money now is invested in another company now as well. But he's mad on the stock market, and I remember him posting about it. It was like, now's the time. Like when lockdown hit, it was like it's almost like free money, and I was like, I've kind of learned loads about this, and I've never implemented things. So, and he has a YouTube channel as well, and he just talks constantly about the stock market. He'll show you all his investments and how he kind of splits it all out. And I learned, I reckon, more than half of what I know now. I mean, I only know a small amount still, but from learning from him, and a couple of the books that I've mentioned as well. But yeah, he simplified everything massively. I don't know if it's because he's kind of the similar age to me. He's obviously loves the gym and all the rest of it. I don't know if that kind of coincides, but the stuff that he said just sounded crystal clear and made it super easy. Like a lot of the books, I've read all the Tony Robbins, the money books and stuff. A lot of it's Americanized, whereas his stuff isn't. His stuff is like speaks about all the English ways that you can kind of do it, if that makes sense. So yeah, his stuff taught me loads. Yeah.
Awesome. Right. Okay. Moving away from money. One of the big area, what I wanted to pick out today was some things that I think you're really good at and people can learn from. One of the ways in which I think you've built your business really well, I think, to be honest, the team in the gym where you are was really very, very, very strong at this, was relationships with clients and retention, and also turning that into new business. Like we had a chat just on our mentor session before about, you've got a Christmas do coming up. Not only have you got the clients coming, but you've also got the clients' partners coming. And one of your little mini goals in that do is to get to know the partners, because that could turn into new business. And I'm not sure many people think like that. So tell us a bit about like relationships, how important it's been in building your business, maybe some of the things you do with that and how it helps you get referrals as well.
I think something I realized really, really early on in my PT career was that I was never going to be the type of person who goes out and picks up 10 clients in the first month. I was more of a steady gradual increase rather than being really up and down. I was like, I'd pick one client up, I'd look after him really well. And I think that helped me. So I was like, I knew I wasn't going to go and pick 10 clients up next month, for example. So I need to give absolutely no reason why the current clients that I've got are going to leave me, is what I think it was. So it was, I will give them no excuse whatsoever. I'm going to do everything I can for them. I'd be walking marathon distances with them on the Sunday and like all these kind of stuff that you do at the start. And I think it comes, I remember learning something as well. I think did they call it WOW 1s and WOW 2s? I think it might have been called. Basically meaning kind of do the simple stuff very, 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 very well. So never be late. Remember the name, remember the dog's name, all these kind of things that you don't think is important or you kind of undervalue is massive to people. I remember Graham saying as well on a thing like 5-6 years ago, he was like, results are like 6th, 7th on people's list. He was like, people will stay because you remember the names, because you say please and thank you, because you kind of ask them questions that they like answering, for example, or all them things. And never ever give someone a reason to leave, probably. Also the second part of what you said is something that I kind of drum into my mentees as well, the people who I look after, the kind of younger PTs as such, like the people who are more or newer into business, is getting business from your business, if that makes sense. So half of your business or more than half of your new clients will already be someone that's in your business anyway. And that's the way that I always look at it. So Christmas Day, we've got our Christmas party on Saturday where it'll be all the trainers from my gym and all our clients. And bring your husbands along. I've got a couple bringing another daughter and a mum bringing their partners along. So yeah, buy them a shed load of drinks, tell them how, get the girls to do the talking.
Careful.
Yeah. In terms of how much they enjoy it. And yeah, it's just, you can pick people up from, like I said, the majority of people will already be in your kind of repertoire, in your circle of people you know are in your business. Yeah, definitely.
I'm really glad you went into that, Jordan, because something I was conscious of listening to you a little earlier on was you were talking about like your goals next year to increase your revenue without doing any more hours and things like that. And I can imagine there's a lot of PTs listen to that and go, well, you're going to have to work more to generate that business. You're going to have to go and do more things. And hopefully what they're now seeing, if you can join those dots together, he's got his plan of how he's going to get that new business without doing loads more work. It's already within his business. It's already there. It's all about networks. It's all about connections and relationships and using who you already know. And I think some of the best people in business are almost quite frustrating to watch because it looks like they're not doing much at all. And they're the ones that get all the deals.
Yeah.
But it's all through who they know, what they know. You know, it's all about these relationships and the things that they do outside of the place of work.
Yeah, I think it also probably stems from, you've obviously got to do this when you start a PT business, but as most people do, like, it's very uncomfortable to go out and speak to a new person on the gym floor. So it kind of comes under that again of like not giving anyone a reason to leave. So you're going to really, really stop like the bottom falling out of your business kind of thing. And then it's kind of easy to speak to them people anyway. You've got a relationship with them people. So use them as much as you can to bring in new business, whether it be in the gym, out of the gym now. Yeah.
What you said about not being the type of person who was going to go and pick up 10 people, I think that's most PTs.
Exactly.
The opposite, the one who does that's the anomaly, really. Most people, they are probably going to get 1-2 new clients each month. So if you're going to build the business, you need to keep those.
Yeah.
You need to make sure that they're going to do it. They're going to stay.
Also, the very small minority of people who pick up 10 clients a month will lose 8 or 12.
Yeah, exactly. The people who've got the skill to go and do that, a lot of the time their retention is really low. So they've got to work on the counter side of that, making sure the relationships are strong.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It sort of ties in nicely to one of the things we often joke about, Paul, doesn't it? Like the 47 leads in a week and things like that. And you know, Jordan's saying slow and steady. He's mentioned wow ones and wow twos as well, which we talk about a lot, you know, something that we say you've got to be doing. So there's a lot of, I'm hoping that the listeners, if you've listened for a while, can hear a lot of the things that me and Paul always talk about. In
action.
Jordan's put them in action. So that's the difference, isn't it?
Yeah. Like there's a lot of things that have come up there, but it's the reason why I wanted somebody like yourself on here today, Jordan, was because you're a working example of it, and you really do apply the rules really well, really well, the strategies well. Plus, over the years, you've added a bunch of your own, which are working really effectively. I think we're wrapping up, are we? We just one more question, really. What are your plans for the future, which you've touched on a little bit already? Have you got any big, I know that you're going through this at the minute in your head, but have you got any big plans for the future now? What's next on the list?
So like I said, the big thing that I've kind of been working on the last 5 years or so was kind of getting like a big deposit for the house and all that kind of stuff, and getting the house in the area that I wanted, and like was pretty specific on what I wanted and stuff. And now that's kind of happened, which is a massive thing ticked off. I'm now, like as Paul just said, I'm kind of in the process of kind of getting some bigger stuff down. So yeah, investments, I've got all my kind of the numbers down. So growing the 3 portfolios that are going to give me the freedom over the next 10, 20 years is something that I'm working on, like I said, and that kind of gives me the buzz to get up and get in the gym every day and earn more money and all that kind of stuff. PT wise, as I've also mentioned, is build the semi-private kind of, or more add to the semi-private side to my business. That again, I'll allow that 10% increase or more in revenue without kind of working a shed load more hours. And same again, that kind of ties in with this, is adding to the online side of it. Like I said at the start, I don't want to sit behind a laptop all day, but if I can spend 3-4 hours on a Friday with maybe a walk in between or something like that, or a gym session in between, adding to my online side to my business, then yeah, massive. And then even further along the line, probably the last thing I'd say is property portfolio, whether it be, I'm not crystal clear on this, but I've got a goal of a second one in the next 3 to 4 years, either a flip, so buy it, do it up, sell it on kind of thing, or a start of a rental portfolio. But yeah, they're the avenues. They're the avenues that I want to concentrate on over the next 5 years.
Nice. Always cool, calm and collected going through the goals. But I think the underpinning thing that everyone hopefully has heard it, and I know, is all those goals will happen. Like, I can see them happening. All the things you've just described, the next 2 or 3 years, there's no doubt in my mind you'll go and smash them. That's been awesome today, buddy. I hope the listeners, and I know they will have taken a ton of good stuff from that. I think it's just for me and Matt to wrap up today. Is there anywhere you want to shout out? Do you have like Instagram, Facebook handles and things like that you need to give people?
Yeah, I can do. I've got Instagram. It's just J, then my surname, SWINDELLS93. That's pretty much it. Yeah, I'll post some stuff on Insta. Yeah, that's pretty much it, really. There's nothing else that I want to shout out, really.
We'll tag him up in everything anyway.
Yeah.
We'll tag him in anything that we post and paste his face all over it as well, so you can see who you're looking for.
Yeah. I think that's it. I think it's just for us to say goodbye this week. But before we go, we did want to mention that we've seen a lot of activity going backwards on the podcast recently in the last few weeks, that a lot of listeners are going back and downloading some of the previous episodes. So it's worth us mentioning that is a really good thing to do, especially as at the minute we're shooting a lot of mini series that all tie together, that give you a lot of information in sequence. So we've noticed a lot of activity, listeners going back and doing that. We encourage it. If you know anyone who you think would benefit from the podcast, please give us a referral. And if you're enjoying it, please leave us a referral review on there, 5-star, obviously. And we would really appreciate it because it helps us get out to more and more people. And that's what we want to do.
Yep. As Paul said, we saw a nice spike in downloads this week, didn't we? But it wasn't on the new stuff. It was
historical episodes, which is brilliant. That's good. And it's always worth going back and looking at some of the ones that we've done previously and recapping on some.
And then one final ask from myself is that if you are a newer listener, if you've only just discovered us recently, please make sure you reach out. Go and find Paul on Instagram at Coach Campey, or myself at Matt Robinson PT, and just let us know who you are. How did you find us? Give us a shout. We always like to know where people are finding us. It's always useful to us to know that information.
Definitely. All right. Until next time. Cheers, Jordan. Cheers, Matt. See you soon.